When I look at the Bible, I see God again and again trying to change our minds about ourselves and completely obliterate the hold that sin has on our lives. God places before us life and death and pleases with us to choose life, and yet so often we live in the latter. So over the next few weeks, I want to do my very best to communicate how I see this message. God has shown me so much on this that I had to split it up. And I want to start by saying that this is an ongoing journey for me. And like a lot of things, it takes a long time for something to move from head knowledge to heart knowledge. But sin consciousness is a daily battle for me and for so many people. And that's why I think it's a really important topic. Most of us have been brought up with this warped perspective of God and His absolute disgust in the things that we do. But I've come to believe that He is bigger than that, and that nothing can separate us from absolute union and oneness with our Father, and that sin affects us more than it affects Him. We all know the story of Adam and Eve. God created man and woman and placed them in paradise where they lived in absolute union and oneness with God. They walked and they talked with Him. And God has always been about oneness with us. And not even sin has changed His mind about this. And He put two trees in the garden, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that would forever change our minds about ourselves and our God. And the enemy's lie from the very beginning was that the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or the I am not tree, would allow you to see yourself the way that God truly sees you. And this was a big fat lie that many of us still believe thousands of years later. And when they chose to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, all of a sudden their eyes were opened to how inadequate they were, how much we lacked, how much we believed the lie that this is how God saw us. And suddenly this vast distance opened up between us and our Father, who has always wanted oneness and seamless union with us. The tree of knowledge of good and evil represents a lack and inadequacy, the forever struggle of having to perform in order to win back the life of our design. The tree of I am not, the tree of judging yourself, a sudden knowledge of sin and this feeling of inadequacy, seeing weakness and highlighting the brokenness in us, experiencing shame, the tree of having to strive. And choose what you believe, I am or I am not, but I'm telling you that the entire Bible is a story of God on an extravagant mission to change our minds about ourselves and Him ever since Genesis 1:1. The Bible says that sin is your master while the law is your measure, and that slavery is no substitute for sonship. Sin, or being without portion or form, literally means to hold on to this distorted pattern. The root of sin is to believe a lie about yourself. And God laid out a choice from the very beginning. He said you can choose to eat from the tree of life and believe what I believe, or you can believe a lie about yourself and eat from the tree of I am not good enough. Was the distance made by God? Did He hide from Adam and Eve? Did their shortfalling make Him turn His back on them? No. They hid in shame from Him. Sin did not create the distance between God and man. The consequence of sin, being shame and the great feeling of inadequacy, made Adam and Eve hide from God. And ever since that day, man has seen his failings and felt inadequacy and strived to make God like us. And in spite of what they had done, God, still wanting to exist in absolute union with mankind, came looking for them and calling out to them. And they said, we hid because we were embarrassed about our nakedness. And He said, who told you that you were naked? Who told you this lie about yourself? And so God Himself made the first ever animal sacrifice and provided clothing for them so that they no longer had to see themselves that way and to change their minds about themselves. Ephesians 3 verse 19 says, so that you may be filled with the fullness of God, awakened to the consciousness of His closeness. Separation is an illusion. Oneness was God's idea all along. He desires to express Himself through your touch, your voice, your presence. He is so happy to dwell in you. There is nowhere in the universe that He would rather be. Deuteronomy 30 verse 19 says, today I have given you the choice between life and death, between blessing and curses. Now I call upon all heaven and earth to witness the choice that you make. Oh, that you would choose to eat from the tree of life so that you and your descendants would live. God did not have a problem with sin consciousness. We did. He wasn't hiding from Adam and Eve in the garden. They were hiding from him. God was not embarrassed by Adam's nakedness. The clothing was not to make God look at Adam differently, but to make Adam feel better about himself. And since we become what we believe about ourselves, I want to leave you with these final thoughts. What lies do I believe that I need to let go of that keep me hiding from God in shame? Where have I created distance between me and my Father that doesn't belong? And where are the feelings of inadequacy in my life that I need to let go of? I pray that as you think about the answers to these questions, that you begin to experience this mind shift in the way that you think about yourself and your Father. Bless you heaps.